Hello, today we have with us Dr. Nguyen, and I'd like to get started by asking you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Dr. Katrina Nguyen. I'm in Illinois, Northern Illinois. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist, and basically I deal with children's intestine, stomach, esophagus, liver, gallbladder, nutrition, and growth. I've been a physician for over 20 years and a pediatric GI since 2009. I have a passion for fighting childhood obesity and formed a nonprofit in 2014 for that purpose. Thank you for inviting me here to your platform.
It's so good to have you. So why did you choose the field of pediatric gastroenterology?
Well, when I was in medical school, I had an interest in procedures. I was always that student, and even in residency, I always wanted to volunteer to learn a procedure. And in fact, in residency, we were required to do so many procedures. And for me, I had 4 years to complete all my procedures, and I completed that in 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I wanted to choose a specialty that involved procedures. In terms of pediatric GI versus adult GI, there's a big component of nutrition. And in pediatrics in general, there's an opportunity for prevention of diseases. So that's where I chose a specialty that allowed me to do everything I loved. Yeah.
I can certainly appreciate that. The first thing I did after my residency was I went into primary care, and prevention is huge. I once had a patient who I counseled about obesity, and he stopped coming. And I thought maybe I had offended him. But then a couple of years he came back later, he said, Dr. Hester, I've lost 99 pounds. I was trying to wait to 100, but I had bronchitis. So I can certainly appreciate it. It feels very good to be able to not just treat disease, but to prevent the disease. So I can certainly appreciate that. So tell us about your nonprofit, Faithful to Fitness.
Yes, it's called Faithful, the number 2 Fitness. I thought of, after I finished fellowship 2009, my first job was in Augusta, Georgia. And my partners and I were trying to devise an obesity clinic. But there were lots of red tape involved, trying to get things covered through insurance, and also helping patients overcome the fact that, how many people, children or adult, feel comfortable coming to a doctor to be weighed, every so often, and being told they've gained weight and they didn't improve. So after realizing the challenges of having an obesity clinic in the hospital clinic setting, I took it to the community, and I created something that could overcome the red tape. Didn't involve insurance, didn't involve whether you could afford something. And got community partners to do it. So my resident who was interested in PHGI, he was a chief resident at the time. We decided to propose a grant through the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we were given what's called a CATCH grant, CATCH, called Community Access to Child Health. And it gave us almost $3,000. But with the budgeting and the support for the community, by the end of 6 months, we gave most of the money back. And when I understood that a childhood obesity intervention program in the community didn't cost millions of dollars. And when I moved here to Illinois in 2013, my partners here said, can you do what you did in Augusta for Rockford, Loves Park, Illinois? I said, why not form a nonprofit? And so my goal and its mission is to help reverse the childhood obesity epidemic in America, starting one city and one child at a time. And it shouldn't cost, anything really. If you are passionate about it, you can get people to contribute their time, their talent, and treasure, whether it's an individual or it's a community, small business. But I think if we all care, we can empower each other, empower our patients or our families to learn tips and overcome barriers to become healthier.
So this should come as no surprise, but what you're doing could really turn the tide of healthcare in America, because with this epidemic of childhood obesity, which will ultimately lead to obesity in adulthood and diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, and so forth. What you're doing is tremendous, and I think that's awesome. Being an internist, I actually see the end result, and a lot of people have struggled most of their lives with obesity. And if you can catch it at a young age and turn that around, you can turn around a person's entire life.
Yes, and in fact, when I first started my nonprofit, even in Georgia, when I wrote the first grant with my resident, a lot of people, doctors, nurses, dietitians, and families would ask me, why childhood obesity intervention? Why not just obesity intervention? And I mean, what I found I actually did a four-year residency in internal medicine and pediatrics, so med peds. And at one point in my med peds clinic, I had a 40-year-old female patient who had just got discharged from the hospital after a heart attack and had one stent placed. Had
40
diabetes, 40 years old. She was 386 pounds. She had been homeless. She was helped by the Salvation Army. She had asthma. She smoked, had reflux, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, sleep apnea, you name it. It was a list of health problems and medical issues. And she was just helpless and hopeless. And what I did was what I told her is, it's overwhelming to look at everything you have to do, but look at one thing at a time. And I said, start with quit smoking. Right? Why don't we quit smoking first? Because that's going to impact everything you have. And then the next thing is looking at how we're eating and why we eat and where we eat and how can I be active. And until we improve one thing at a time, we're going to be overwhelmed. And after 2 years of taking care of her, she lost 186 pounds.
Wow.
And lots of the medications that she was on, she was able to get off a lot of them. And she was working out. She joined a gym and worked out every day. She even became a math teacher. She got her a degree to become a math teacher. So sometimes, it's not just about the improvement in health and losing weight. It's about overall mental health and giving people confidence. Absolutely. And empowering them to say, not only can I improve my health, I can improve my overall life and goals and opportunities and just achieving things to be more successful. So that's when I said, if I can make a difference in someone at 40 years old and motivate them, I can do it in children even better.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to tell us a success story, but that is way beyond a success story. 186
pounds. Yeah. And this is, I did residency between 2002 to 2006. And I remember her coming in like the last week before I went to fellowship. And she brought in, her pants and she says, this is where I was, and then she told me, no matter where you go, don't forget me. And it really stuck with me. And I said, yes, I'm going to do pediatric GI, but I can't forget that I could make a difference in obesity intervention. So even though my nonprofit is focused on childhood obesity, we require parents and guardians to be involved in the program. So they participate in exercise, cooking classes, nutrition lessons, because it's really about the family. It's not about just one child. If you make a change as a family, it becomes a motivational support group, and changes together will last longer.
So what would you tell parents that they could do specifically, some specific take-home points that they could apply to kind of turn the tide with their kids?
So there's 3 things that we teach in our program, our Faith for Fitness program. Number 1, which I see it affects children a lot, is sugary beverages. So stop that. Just start drinking water. And I always tell my patients that, can we aim for at least 32 ounces of water a day? And then maybe we can push it to something higher. But drop all sugary beverages. What I mean is it's healthier to eat an apple than drink apple juice. Stop the sodas, diet sodas, the sports drinks, the blended coffees, right? Even when you go and you say, I'm having a smoothie, but the way they make it there isn't as healthy as what you can make at home. Right. So start with that and drink more water. The second thing is children, especially who come to see me, suffer from gastrointestinal diseases like constipation because they don't have enough fiber. So aim for, a minimum of 3 servings, up to 5 servings a day of fruits or vegetables. And then the third thing is finding a way for the family to be active together, and brisk walking, 30 to 60 minutes. Most people say every day, aim for 3 times a week. So we can get together Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 times a week, at least 30 minutes, and then push it to 60. But those are 3 tips. I say we can start with those 3 things. Very simple, doesn't cost anything, doesn't require any membership. And you can budget and eat healthy by eliminating things like sodas and sugar beverages that cost more than water.
It's
So,
true.
yeah.
What barriers have you found, if any?
So I was 14 months old when I came here to America as a refugee after the Vietnam War. So I always say I reflect when I started my nonprofit and when I work in childhood obesity intervention, the same barriers I faced as a refugee are the same barriers I apply here. So knowledge, motivation, being in the right environment. The other thing is really overall accepting that obesity, whether child or adult, that it's a health problem. But I think that's the big picture, that we need to understand that it's not just this is how I am or this is how my genetics are, right? We have to understand that it leads to other health problems such as diabetes type 2, high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, sleep apnea, fatty liver disease, which is affecting children more and more. So if we can empower people with knowledge, the knowledge of that eating healthy doesn't cost more, being active doesn't cost a lot of money. It takes time, right? It takes motivation. It takes working together as a family and saying that we can motivate each other. We can budget. We can take time to meal prep. We can take time to be active. Learning to cut down the screen time, learning to sleep enough, so that those things can improve our health. But what my program does is every Saturday when we work out together for an hour, it's an opportunity for motivation. When we provide nutrition lessons, it's overcoming that knowledge barrier. When we have a 5K event every August, it's a motivation to say, I need to train for that 5K. I can't just one day sit on a couch and next day run a 5K. So it's going to take that effort to walk and be active to prepare for that 5K.
Okay. You made a very important point, acknowledging the barriers. That's so important because if you don't consider the barriers to reaching the goals, then you can kind of drop the ball. But you acknowledged, several things that could serve as barriers. And so when people understand those barriers, it's easier for them to overcome them. But if you're just kind of in the dark and you're reading here, you're reading there, and so forth, it is definitely more difficult to overcome that. So is there anything else in particular you want to tell us about your nonprofit? It sounds incredible.
Well, one of my goals, so since 2020, I've published 2 books now, and in the process, another 3rd book will be coming. The 3rd book is focused on teaching people how I formed a nonprofit for childhood obesity intervention. And I would love to, partner with anyone out there, dietitian, gym instructors, medical students, doctors, nurses, anyone who is passionate about childhood or adult obesity intervention, how I can create a chapter of my nonprofit in your community by coming there and speaking in your community and picking out partners that we can brainstorm together who could contribute time, talent, and treasure to make it happen. Because I do believe that making a difference in childhood obesity epidemic should not cost millions of dollars. And a community does not need a bunch of grants to make it happen. It's about individuals and businesses coming together because we care.
Okay. So I'm going to put up your contact information at the end of this video, but can you tell people how you'd like to be reached also?
Yes, I have a website, a brand new website. It's www.m like Mary, D, and then Katrina with a K, mdkatrina.com. There you'll find my work as a doctor, in the nonprofit work, as a speaker and an author. And if you're interested in looking at my nonprofit website, it's faithful2fitness.org, and also facebook.com/faithful2fitness.
Great. Tell me about the books.
So I have 2 books. The first book was published December 2020 in paperback, and yesterday the ebook came out. It's called Live to Give, an inspirational memoir about freedom, faith, and selflessness. So it talks about my journey as a refugee and my family's experience growing up in America and how we overcame barriers to become successful. Also talks about my nonprofit and the importance of inspiring selflessness by giving back. And we're successful. We think about how we got there and how we can help others be successful as well. The second book was released January 19th with 11 other women, and it's called The Confidence of Yes. And it's really teaching, in each chapter, each woman talks about how they said yes to their career and how they give tips on how they also can empower other people to say yes when opportunity comes knocking.
Okay.
So I hope that it will help empower people, patients, and just individuals if they're in somewhere making a decision on what to do with their life, their career. Just say yes and look out for people who can help you make it happen.
Where can people get the books?
So the Live to Give and is on Amazon. And also, if you want the ebook, it's on Hilton Publishing Company. So hpcinternational.com. The copy for The Confidence of Yes, if you go to lulu.com, you'll get my personal copy because each author has their personal version of the paperback.
Okay. So I'm going to add all this information to the text about the video. It's very good information, and I'm sure a lot of people will want to know more about this. So tell me about the role of telemedicine and what you do.
So since in the pandemic, since 2020, we learned that we had to convert a lot of our care to telehealth.
Mm-hmm.
And after I left the hospital setting and started doing travel medicine called locum tenens, I learned that other hospitals were doing just as much telemedicine as my hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined a group called My Catholic Doctor, which has over 100 clinicians across 50 states. I'm the only pediatric GI in the group. And the convenience that people have found is when they have 3 children, for instance, and they're also trying to make dinner and they're trying to do Zoom classes for their kids.
Yes.
They said, this is so convenient. I can do all this stuff and also do a telehealth visit and get my prescriptions and labs and everything done. So we assess whether the patient who needs the telehealth visit is appropriate for telehealth. Not every child or adult can benefit from telehealth, but I would say 9 out of 10 times it's convenient for follow-up visits or situations where an actual physical exam may not be necessary at the first visit. We'll determine whether, based on the first visit, whether the patient would need to be seen urgent care ER or an actual physician in their area. But it's been powerful for me the past few years to be able to grow the practice with other clinicians.
Right. Can you give people an example of a type of issue that they would not want to do telehealth for? They would not want to wait for the appointment. They would just seek medical attention.
Yes. For example, if you're having severe pain, abdominal pain, and I suspect appendicitis, an obstruction, I wouldn't say you can, I would say, well, you probably need to go to the ER and get this taken care of. So,
okay. I want to go back to your foundation. So what have you noticed the children doing as far as their response to the recommendations and so forth with Faithful to Fitness?
So I say a lot of times the children are seen by a dietitian because the primary care physician referred to the dietitian for nutrition intervention. And the dietitian is the one that usually refers the patient to our program.
Okay.
Usually it's the child that will tell the parent, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to the program. I don't want to work out with you or other children. I'm just not comfortable working out with other kids. And then we'll say, you know what, we'll let you decide, but let's have you go look at the Facebook page and see the things we do. It's, it's fun, and let's watch some cooking classes. And then after a few weeks of just kind of exploring and researching our program, they come. And then once they walk through that door that first day and they make friends and they see how other children are going through the same thing they're going, it becomes something they can do. Right. Typically, if they can get through the first 3 weeks, go consistently the first 3 out of 12 weeks, they stay the whole time. What I've seen is if they attend 10 out of 12 weeks of the program, those are the children that when we check in after a year, they've lost weight, lost significant amount, like 20, 30 pounds, and maintained it and started eating healthy and motivating other people in their family to do the same. So we've had success stories. Like last year, August, we had a mom and a son who spoke at our 5K event, and they shared how the son was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes a year and a half before that. And through our program and motivation, he got off insulin. he was getting insulin, the long acting, and also had to check his sugars and get his injections. He got all of it. He was on one pill. And their family had already had another child with type 1 diabetes who was also dealing with injections of insulin and checking sugars. So it was overwhelming. So to have one child, that they said we could actually do it a prevention, and he was 14 years old. Just imagine the impact of being able to get off insulin and reversing type 2 diabetes at that age. So those are the stories that we like to share. And those children who have an important result, an impactful result like that, they love to share those stories to inspire other children.
So I have to ask, when the kids have these stories, have you noticed that the parents want to jump on board too more? The parent who wasn't really involved, all of a sudden it's like, well, let me see what I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And they see how important it is, to help their child, because it'll help the other children, the family, or even the cousins. I've had kids who've been through our program who now tell their cousins to join. And I would ask, like, how did you hear about our program? That's how I find out. It was a relative that told them about it. So it's word of mouth. I do very little marketing other than just a Facebook page and an occasional post here and there, just to inspire people. That's really the purpose.
Okay. So as far as electronics, I see that as one of the things that kids are really into. I remember when I was growing up, we used to go out and run around and run up and down the street and everything. Do you see that as one of the challenges to overcome with kids wanting to sit and work on electronic devices? Is that the sort of thing that seems to prevent them from getting up and getting active?
Yes, I think more to do with TV or video games. I always say, yes, there's schools that require like Zoom classes or certain assignments that require the computer. But if it's not like education related, I'd say limit the Zoom time, the screen time in particular. So I definitely see that. And I encourage parents and children to cut back on the screen time if it's not like necessary for school.
Okay. Well, Dr. Nguyen, you've given a lot of very good information, but I do want to ask you, is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
I think the main thing is, if they visit the Faithful to Fitness page, and if they are within, driving distance within an hour or so of Rockford, Loves Park, Illinois, we invite them to come join us for the 5K each August. This year, we're planning August 19th. And so, that's one thing. And the other thing is reach out to me if you would like me to come to your community and share what I do and inspire your community to have the same program we have here in Loves Park, Illinois.
That's awesome. I hope that this is so successful that this is kind of like a launching pad for a lot of other similar programs around the country, because it is so needed. And just hearing the successes you've had so far is so inspiring, because I see people at the other end of the spectrum once they've lost their eyesight or they've lost their kidneys because of diabetes and so forth. So being able to intervene early before they end up in this downhill spiral is tremendous. And I thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I'm certainly going to put all the information at the end of this video and also in the description about how people can learn more about you, your work, your websites, and how to contact you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. And I hope you have a blessed day.
You have a blessed day as well. Bye-bye.